Hey Blair, how are you?
I'm pretty good, Marc. Great to see you.
Oh, it's been too long. I am so stoked that you could make the time to do this and that you managed to do it with such a rockin' studio. I love that studio, man. You win hands down for the coolest backdrop and depth of field adjustment thing and lighting. I'm very impressed.
Thank you very much.
Oh my God. That is so cool. All we have to talk about today is how you put a kit together so you could do Zoom calls like Blair Enns and look like you're on CNN. It's incredible.
Well, I'll give you the short answer. I used to spend $11,000 a month traveling, and now I don't. So I had a big budget for equipment.
It's very cool. I think all of us should aspire to get a little bit of home studio like Blair Enns. Now, Blair, I'm just going to give you a quick intro. If some folks don't know who you are, I met you a long while ago. I was running a company called Change. Sold the company to an innovation firm out of Chicago called Maddox Douglas, and then they said, "Marc, we want to bring in Blair Enns to talk to you." And I go, "Oh crap, it's some consultant who's going to teach me the 1, 2, 3 steps to success in life and happiness." And I'm like, "All right, whatever." And you walk in and you're a Vancouver guy, and we met in Vancouver at my company on Granville Island. And you sat me down, and for 2 days, you blew my brains out as far as everything that I ever thought about pitching, about valuing creativity, about presenting creative ideas and innovative ideas, and about getting paid for stuff like that. And when we finished, I got your book, The Win Without Pitching Manifesto. And I like to tell people that it's one of the 3 business books that I keep going back to again and again and again and again. And it never gets old. It reads like a beautiful piece of prose. And the stuff in there on, how to have conversations as opposed to presentations, how to price yourself as a rarity as opposed to a commodity. These are life lessons. And I have recommended this book to hundreds of people. I've since gone on and, take a look at your new book, Pricing Creativity, which is a book and a course and stuff like that, and wrote a review for it. And incredible, mind-blowing stuff. So I want to bring you on BrandDIY because, as I told you in the pre-conversation, there's a lot of baby entrepreneurs in this group and a lot of people who are just throwing ideas out who need to figure out how to value what they do and get paid for it. And you're the master at that. So
Yeah, thank you very
welcome.
much. One correction, I'm not a Vancouver guy. I'm a British Columbia guy, but I'm a short 11-hour drive from Vancouver in little old Caslow, British Columbia,
That's right.
population
But
900.
I thought you were originally Vancouver because you were working at Coup Creative, weren't you?
Yeah, I was working at Coup Creative in Calgary when they had opened an office
Oh,
out there, and I came along a couple of years later. It kind of opened and imploded, and I stepped in after the implosion.
yeah. Now, there is a great story how you came to the whole win without pitching sort of methodology, and it involved doing what I used to do, getting up and selling work. Can you tell us about that? Just the whole idea of that feeling, that icky feeling that drove you to say, I got to change something here.
Yeah, there were a lot of steps along the way, but when I started in the agency world, I was 22, and very quickly, I grew up in Winnipeg. So my first couple of agency jobs were in Winnipeg. Then I moved to Calgary, and then after that, I ended up in little old Caslow. And to the extent that I was trained at all, nobody really gets trained in the business side of the agency business, or at least they didn't in, my day. So I was, the way it was modeled for me was like, oh yeah, we like basically, Blair, here's how we do it. We chase as many organizations of all kinds of different sizes, whatever they need under the marketing communication realm, we can do. So we pursue that. And then once we get a live one, we overwhelm them with our passion and enthusiasm. We give away all of our power. We grovel. We do a whole bunch of work for free. And then we say please and thank you and wait nicely to hear if we won or not. And I thought, okay, well, I guess if that's the way it works, that's the way it works. So that's the way I did it for a few years. Fast forward, I moved to Calgary. I had some more freedom to basically rebuild this small office, because when the previous person who ran that office had left, all the clients were friends of his. So all the clients walk out the door. So I walk into the shell of essentially a business. And I worked for a guy, Ken Koop, who to this day I have such a high regard for. I've lost track of him. I think he's back in China now. Who basically said, do this however you want. And he gave me the freedom to kind of put my feet up on the desk and think about how I wanted to do this. And he was super supportive of kind of my alternative approach to like no longer giving power away for free. Mm-hmm. We did have this one moment, and where Ken had come in from Vancouver, and we were having some new business meetings, and we had what was a fairly good meeting by like standard measures with, I forget the type of company, but we're dealing with a senior person over there, a meeting with them. And he said, at the end of the meeting, he said, okay, you guys do really good work. Why don't you come back with some ideas on how you could help? Like, go away, come back with some free creative. And I just was sick of hearing that. So in that moment, and there's this origin story on the web somewhere. I think it's in our Facebook ads, et cetera. So if you're watching this, you'll probably be inundated with this video for a while. And I just, like, in that moment, I just said, yeah, we're not going to do that. I said, we don't pitch for free. But in the same time I said it, Ken said, sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'd be happy to. So both of us gave completely opposite responses. And like, I don't remember how we kind of reconciled that situation. We didn't win any business from that client. But afterwards, Ken said to me, he said, hey, I'm perfectly fine with you taking, going a different route on this one. I would like to know ahead of time. Yeah, which is completely fair to him. I put him in a really awkward position. Yeah. But that was kind of the moment where I thought, now I'm fed up. And, to this day, Win Without Pitching used to be a consulting practice, and now it's a more scaled up training company. But to this day, we say to our clients, we'd like you to behave the way you behave when you are your most fed up, when you're at the end of your rope, but without the emotions, right? So in that moment, I was kind of fed up. Excuse me. So I decided to push back. And that behavior is the behavior that I basically have adopted since then. I just don't wait to be fed up and emotionally frazzled by it all. Mm-hmm. Just behave the way I behaved in that moment. And in a nutshell, that's what the whole Win Without Pitching approach to new business development, which is our code term for sales, the S word. That's the whole approach. Like, let's just say what's on our mind. Let's be direct. Let's be polite, professional, respectful, but let's just be human beings having a conversation instead of hiding behind these facades of like brief and present and smiling, nodding yes, thinking this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And doing that because we're under this misconception that we're in the service business and the customer's always right. So yeah, that's the origin, and that's the overarching kind of point of view.
Now, one thing, so many things about Win Without Pitching blew my mind when I first encountered them. But the one thing that really stuck, agencies are famous for, you win a piece of business and then you can set your egg timer for 18 months to the time when you lose that piece of business. And that's because you're screwed before you start, because what you do when you start, you give up all your power. It's as if you're going out on the first date and you say, oh yeah, and by the way, you can sleep with me on the first date. So at the very first time that you meet the client, you've already given away the stuff that makes you magic and desirable. You've given it away. So right away, you've come down in their estimation. They don't respect you for it. They expect it from you because you're a vendor, not a partner. So you've come down in their estimation. And from that point on, they know that they can get the stuff for free. So they negotiate really hard to drive you down in price and increase your pliability as far as timing goes, that you'll deliver in 20 minutes. You work Saturday, Sundays anyway, because it's a groovy thing to do in advertising. And then the relationship goes steadily downhill. Now, what blew me away is that realization, and it was a realization after 20 years in the business. I realized this meeting you, that you're at your most powerful when you first meet a client, because at that point you can say, I'm going to set the rules of engagement with you, as opposed to having me give everything up and be the submissive one and you take all the power. Because when you take the power, you don't respect me, and then our relationship starts a steady decline. And after 18 months, you're tired of me. And so you say, I'm going to get a younger, better looking version of you for a lot less money. How do you like that? Goodbye. And the chase starts all over, and we've learned nothing.
Yeah.
And that, it blew me away how common sense it was. And for 20 years, over many agencies at the very top dog position in agencies, I've never figured that out. And I think that's probably how you make your money, because I'm probably not the only one in the business who has never figured that out.
It's so obvious, isn't it? Like
It's
the
so
key
obvious.
principle there is your power in the relationship and your ability to command a price premium will diminish over time. That is generally true, and you should just accept that. It's going to diminish over time. So you want to, so there are two things you can affect. You can affect the slope of that line to a certain extent, and you can also affect the starting point of the line. So if you think of like you start up here seen as the expert practitioner, eventually you're going to slide through partners to this position of vendor. And the expert practitioner can command a high price premium. The vendor has little power in the relationship. They're seen as having a lot of substitutes, direct substitutes. So, and some of your listeners might think, well, no, my relationships get better over time. Yes, some do. Some do, but over the long run, you should accept that there's this sloping line. And so if you start at the vendor position, 18 months is all you're going to get. If you start at the expert practitioner position, you might get 3 or 4 years. You might get 20 years, but you should expect in the average creative firm, and you could extrapolate this to all kinds of other knowledge-based business and certain services like knowledge-based services, you should see your average client engagement as lasting about 3 years, 3 to 4 years. And there's some math there that I'm not going to get into. But basically you would see if you're in a customized service business where you have a small number of clients, you should see yourself as managing a healthy churn of that client base. And most creative firms, marketing firms, are or should be customized services businesses. Some try to move to scale, right? And there are ways to do that, but there are trade-offs. So a scaled service business, like a SaaS company or a training company like mine, where we might have 100 clients at any one time and could be 1,000 or 10,000, there's kind of infinite scale built in. Things are a little bit different. But in that customized services firm, you should see yourself as having a small number of clients, somewhere around 10. And you should see your new business or sales efforts as managing the healthy churn. So you think, well, what's healthy churn? Healthy churn starts with the new client engagement beginning with you positioned as the expert practitioner position, way up high on that line at high margin. And you understand that over time, you're going to slide to vendor. And at this point, you're not getting the respect that you would like. You're not having the impact you would like. You're not making the money you would like. And it makes sense for both parties to part ways. So if you just accept that cycle is kind of 3 or 4 years, and your client base should be somewhere around 10, like 8 to 15, then you accept that you really only need no more than one new client a quarter. And it affects everything about how you think of your client relationships, how you go about the new business function, allows you to slow down and be more selective, forces you to ask some more direct questions about like how much money you're going to spend with me, to uncover whether or not they truly recognize and value your expertise, or they're simply a price buyer and they're hoping to buy you because you're the cheap option. So it's just the implications are massive.
Now, I believe that, we talk about a creative services business, creative direction, writing, art direction, design. But I mean, for brand DIYers, I think an entrepreneur coming out of the gate, I've talked to so many entrepreneurs who have created new products and have had really, really tough time because they start selling these products and the worst thing in the world happens, they land a big client. And the client says, I think I like this product that you've created, this SaaS product, but I think what you should do is change this, and this. And they go, well, we got to do it because it's the big client. And so they start changing it and they change more of it. And suddenly down the road, they look at themselves in the mirror and they go, how did we end up with this thing? This is an abomination. And funny enough, other clients don't want the same thing. So we're trying to incorporate all the things that all the clients want into our SaaS product until it just becomes a hot mess.
Yeah.
And then their product fails. You know, it's almost like you add enough buttons to the TV remote control and nobody can figure it out. And you've forgotten what you actually started out doing. So I believe that this learning is something that can apply equally well to anybody who is launching a product, because you are going to be put under pressure by your clients. If you're unfortunate enough to win a good client, like a big client, you're going to be put under immediate pressure to compromise your product. Or a lot of times you will, because they're going to want more stuff, different stuff, build in stuff, take out stuff. And then I think there's the real danger, or I've experienced it, seeing or working directly with small companies, that at the end of the day, they go, whatever happened? How did we get into all this? What, you know? Now, do you find that's a thing, or do you find that you're focusing a lot on creative businesses that sell their ideas? So do you have any experience at all with more entrepreneurial clients? Building stuff as opposed to selling ideas?
So our target market is creative services firms. And I just before we started recording, I wrapped up the orientation of a new pricing creativity bootcamp. So pricing creativity is my most recent book.
Mm-hmm.
We have 20 different people from maybe 15 different firms.
Mm-hmm.
And if I look at the firms that were in our training program, 10 years ago, they were all ad agencies and design firms. But now you're getting these like verticalized professional services firms. You're getting a large amount of software engineering into a typical design firm. That leads to SaaS, that leads to other productized services. So the market just gets more and more fragmented. So we end up with this really interesting mix of clients. So my target audience is customized services firms. We get productized services firms from time to time. And the problem that you talk about is a problem of like being caught in the mushy middle between customized and productized. And I've done I think I've talked a little bit in the book, Pricing Creativity, about customized versus productized services. Mm-hmm. There's a talk on YouTube of me speaking at the Inbound HubSpots conference a few years ago, and it's called, I think it might be called Price the Client, but it's really, I spend most of the talk talking about the distinction between productized and customized services firms, and how increasingly as creative firms get more digital, they're more influenced by SaaS companies. You see a lot of these attempts at scale, and they're not all wrong, but some of them are mistakes because they're not fully scaling. They're caught in the mushy middle. Now, when I was a consultant, I had a scalable product. You've got something similar. There are ways to do that. Mm-hmm. But when you launch this product and your first big client comes along and says, I want it customized, so you customize it to the client. Like you just said, as soon as you start talking, it's like, oh yeah, I see this all the time. You end up with this hot mess and you don't know if you're customized or productized. Now, what you need to understand about, I apologize, this window's open and the sunshine is coming through, which in the interior of British Columbia is highly unplanned.
This makes it even more special because you're appearing live from heaven.
Why, yes, thank you. Where was I before I was distracted by the sun?
Productized, customized, and people starting to get caught in the mushy middle where clients are pushing and pulling them to
And what you need to understand is that why would somebody buy a productized service instead of a customized service? Generally speaking, they buy it because of price. So when you're productizing a service, might sound more sophisticated than it is certainly in a small business, but you're doing these segmentation analysis. You're saying, well, I've got groups of clients that look like this who value this, and groups of clients who look like this and value this and are willing to spend this. So you build these products and you price them for these groups. Why would somebody buy a productized service instead of a customized service? One of the reasons is price. And they understand that they're getting a lower price. It's not customized. They're getting a lower price. What's the trade-off they're making? It's perfect fit. So somebody who's buying a productized service understands that they're not going to get exactly a perfect fit. You build your product for the average of a segment. And there's a really interesting book called The End of Average. And I forget the name of the author, but it basically says you look at any cohort where you're averaging and you're doing something, building something to that average. You need to understand that it doesn't matter how many people are in that cohort, 20,000 in the sample, the number of people likely to meet the average exactly is usually 0. Right? So when we are building products, we're building them for segments and the average of various users in a segment. And we need to understand that it's perfect for nobody. And you just need to accept that. Mm-hmm. And you pursue scale, knowing that your product is pretty good for all of these people in the segment and it's perfect for nobody. And then what you see in a lot of productized service companies like SaaS companies too, you'll see this, like after a while, they'll launch a separate division that is a fee-for-service consulting business that helps some of the larger clients customize the instance, right? And then you see some organizations like Salesforce.com has said, we're not going to do that. We're going to empower outside consultants to do that. We're going to create this entire ecosystem of consultants. Mm-hmm. And Salesforce isn't the only one. There are others who do that too. So that's the way it should work. You focus on the product and scale. And at some point, you're going to be faced with this question of customizing. But in the early days, you might add features based on your 800-pound or your early clients. Yeah. What do you need? And you're not thinking about scale in the beginning. You're trying to build like an MVP, or you're trying to get product market fit. But like to your point, if it's too customized to one client, especially a big one who has very specific needs, you end up with this feature bloat, right? Mm-hmm. Or going in the wrong direction. Mm-hmm. You're better off like just pursuing scale and then dealing with customization a little bit later and just accepting that there's a trade-off. They get a lower price and it's not a perfect fit. Yeah.
I want to finish because I want to respect your time. Got a couple more minutes. I want to finish on what I think was the most valuable lesson for me as a creative director in Win Without Pitching and working with you. And that is the whole idea of conversations versus presentations. And to me, it changed the way I do things, because now I bring clients into my thinking at every step of the process, and it looks messy and it looks not nice. But what you do, you start to establish fences by getting their feedback and turning them from being a judge into a collaborator. Yeah. And start building fences that get narrower and narrower as you get closer and closer to the finished product. So when you present the finished product, they're going, of course it's that. I knew it was going to be that, but there's no ta-da. And I have found the success rate of that approach is through the roof versus going away, developing something for 3 weeks like ad agencies do. And then going ta-da, and the clients go, no ta-da. Ta-da. So this is something that I mean, you personally experienced as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And that desire to stand at the stage and do the big reveal, it's quite pronounced in a creative personality. Creative people, creativity is the ability to see, the ability to think about a problem differently. And anybody who has that skill has a related skill, which is the ability to think on your feet. So you're a quick thinker, you can see around corners. So if your combined superpowers are thinking about the problem differently, and then thinking on your feet, dealing with objections, then you're going to create the conditions where you get to present all day long. Here's my brilliant idea. What do you think? And then you have to deal with the objections or the awkward silence that gets thrown at you. Like creative people love being in that moment. And they love it so much, they're willing to, they create the conditions all the time. So I come along and I point out, this isn't really in the client's best interest. You do this because it's something you want.
That's a big realization, because you think that that's what the clients want.
Well, you think, and I love that I've converted you on this point of view, because you are like, it's, to me, I'll just like gas you up a little bit. I think you're one of the greatest creatives this country has ever produced, full stop. And for you to come to the realization that I'm doing this for me, this isn't the best thing for the client, there's a better way to work here, that makes me quite happy and proud, because like the business results are there, right? You let go of like what you kind of need in that moment. I was like, okay, this is about me. This is about the client. You embrace the fact that there shouldn't be this series of big reveals. We shouldn't be withholding information so we can go ta-da. We should work more collaboratively, but we put these guardrails in place, like you say, so the client can't say, well, what about this? And what about this? And drag us off in all these directions. And you end up in this it's not a middle ground, but you end up with this method of working that's no big reveals, so logical. The client feels invested in the process. When you show the final creative, they feel like they've had a hand in it, right? Even though from your point of view, it's been very little. They haven't kind of derailed anything. They feel some ownership of it, and the experience is just far more meaningful for them.
Well, they go and sell it. My experience has been that they go and sell it to their friends because they came up with it.
Oh yeah, right.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love watching that. And just like, maybe it's because I'm getting old and my ego has just been, like subsumed or something, or calcified, or gotten arthritic. But I'm just like, hey man, it's your idea, go run and tell all your friends that you came up with it. But you know what? After that, the whole idea of me being one of the best creatives, I don't think this conversation is going to go anywhere anymore. It can't get any better. So I'm going to call it a day and let you get on with the business that is, you're doing the Lord's work, man. You're saving people like me from ourselves, and you are making creativity what it should be, a valued resource, as opposed to something that people just go, whatever, creativity. So I just want to say thanks, man. And I'm going to put some show notes in. You're a BrandDIY guy. And so I want people, to reach out to you. You have so many good programs, so many, like the Win Without Pitching Manifesto, I think is a nice wedge in. It changed my life. So I just want to say thanks again for making this possible and coming on, because there's a lot of people who are going to be able to use this in this group.
Thanks, Marc. It's my pleasure. I'm really honored to be here, and I love what you're doing. Keep it up.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And by the way, I love that background. Did I mention that? I love the background, and I love the Blair Enns, the man with the TV studio. All right. I'll talk to
Fade to black.